What's this, my mantra?
The Wi-Fi password. We're not savages.
Hey there, Enthusiacs. Welcome back to Hero Talk. I am your host, Judge Greg. Joining me today in the hallowed halls of Hero Talk, straight from my side gig on the Gamers Without Borders podcast, I have Nick.
Hello.
The loyal gamer.
Hello.
Nick, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thank you, pretty good. And yeah, hallowed side gig is the right way to put it.
Yeah.
Though I did hear you refer to on another podcast as the de facto co-host, which I think is the right name for you now.
I was really fun when I got de facto co-host, because I thought, yeah, that's about right.
Yep.
That's how I would describe it as well. So there we go. And so today's film, Nick, is Doctor Strange, which is the 2016 action superhero film starring Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yep.
That is not an easy name. It doesn't roll off the tongue. But before we get too deep into it, let me remind all of our listening audience that Hero Talk is a spoiler podcast. Nothing is off the table. Everything is fair game. You've been warned.
I'm already planning two quite major spoiler things that I'm going to bring up at some point, so he's not joking.
Yeah, I love the spoiler warning, because I can spoil anything I want now.
Yep.
You know, the Planet of the Apes was Earth all along.
No!
Yeah.
Although, Bruce Willis was a ghost, right?
Oh, yeah, dead the whole time.
Yeah.
Soylent Green is people.
Oh, no. Oh.
Rosebud's his sled.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
All right, so Doctor Strange is a character. I'm familiar with the character, but I didn't read an awful lot of Doctor Strange comics. He's one of those characters I don't really want to hear his whole story.
Yeah.
I just like it when he shows up in other people's books.
Well, I think kind of one of the ways I think to describe this film is it's not Doctor Strange, it's magic in the MCU, the film. This is what this film did. And
they jumped in with both feet. They sure did.
And the interesting thing, and I'm going to already bring out my two big spoilers already, is we're already seeing subtle hints following on from Doctor Strange about magic in the MCU. So, have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
I won't say one of the things I was going to say, because even though we are on a spoiler podcast, I just don't think that's fair on you. But for example, in recent episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I know you're not watching, there's points where they're making like interdimensional portals, and it's very deliberately got the same visual effect as a lot of the stuff in Doctor Strange. So like now that Doctor Strange has happened, we're seeing a lot of other Marvel properties kind of hinting that magic's kind of been there the whole time, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean I was very surprised when I found out they were going to make Doctor Strange, because I thought, this doesn't necessarily fit into the world that you've been trying to build so far.
Yes.
And to be honest, I really thought the Mandarin would have been how they tried to introduce magic into the Marvel universe. But Doctor Strange, I think, opens the door for the Mandarin.
Yeah, and I think
at the very least,
I think the other thing it opens the door to that some people have commented on is the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe can now go on forever. Because they hint at the idea of the multiverse, which is obviously a major point. But I think the most interesting thing is, if you look at a lot of the Marvel characters that we have already, they're characters in themselves, but they've picked heroes that are very much kind of like mantles. So, as we know, like, Chris Evans is going to stop being Captain America one day, but it's a well-known fact that the mantle of Captain America can be passed on to Bucky, can be passed on to Sam Wilson. So, from a cynical filmmaker perspective, they can get another actor to do it and keep the character going. But the multiverse also allows them the situation of the few characters that are characters in and of themselves, like Thor and, say, Vision. They can go, oh, we found a parallel universe, female Thor, or whatever. Like, I think that's kind of... This film also basically exists to kind of... It's more about kind of the concepts it introduces, less the characters, in my opinion.
Right. And to be honest, I think the film hurt for it, because there was definitely times where I thought, stop introducing stuff.
Yes.
And start giving me some story here.
Well, yeah,
not that Doctor Strange has the most interesting story. I've only seen it played out once before, and that was in an animated Marvel movie that came out. I think it was called Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
Yes, in fact, it was called Doctor Strange the Sorcerer Supreme. It's from 2007.
Yeah.
And I mean, that movie was also very difficult to watch, because it's a whole lot of here's all the Marvel magic stuff, and I really noticed I apparently don't care about the Marvel magic universe.
Well, I like this film, but I think when it comes to the story, the way I've always kind of jokingly summed this up is the other title of this film is just Iron Man 2016, because the parallels between this and Iron Man 1 are absurd.
They are. I mean, but so's the base story. Quite frankly.
But it's like arrogant rich guy gets injured by something tangentially linked to his life. Kind of bottoms out and then realizes he can be a better man and like pushes away the woman in his life, and it's like, come on. Like I'll concede that a lot of the kind of first films for a lot of the major characters are fundamentally the same in the MCU, but it's the one thing that bugs me, even to the point that Doctor Strange and Tony Stark actually look kind of similar.
They do. They have that same generic look that everyone in Marvel had for a little while back there.
Yeah. And it's like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you kind of just think, we're 13 movies in now?
Yeah. They did try to very gradually introduce the gray in Doctor Strange's hair.
Yes.
Which then makes me start to question, like, so what's the timeline here? Like, did this happen over the course of 5 years or so? And I think, I mean, they give some hints in the timeline that like this might be, his injury might have happened in 2009.
Yeah, roughly. Like, if we assume that the year that these films came out in real life is the year that they occur-ish, I think it has slipped a bit now. Yeah, because there's reference, we were talking about this before we recorded, there's reference to what is agreed to be a character from Iron Man 2 at the beginning of the film.
Right. It was they made reference that it was an Air Force colonel who was injured in experimental armor, which was so originally I thought, is that Rhodey from Civil War? That was fresh in my mind, but then there was some way about how he said it, like he was being really vague.
Yes.
Where everyone knows who War Machine is.
Yeah. They even know who Rhodes is by name. Like it's not like
he
shied away from the limelight.
I mean, it'd be like him. It was being very exceptionally vague for somebody who's super famous. That's like me saying, it's a singer, does some song called Hello.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. Like, people know who that is. You could just say the name.
Yeah.
So it really occurred to me at that point, especially once I saw the movie play out, and I'm supposed to be seeing years of physical therapy and surgeries, that had to be the guy from the hearing in Iron Man 2.
Yeah. And then obviously if we jump right to the end, we know that some events of this film happen during or after the upcoming Thor film. So I think there is clearly quite a broad spread of time.
Yeah. And to be honest, there's nothing that was very dated in terms of where it stands, because the film sort of takes place all in the magical realm. Yeah. So technically, most of this film could have happened in 2012, and then who we see in the first post-credit scene is, a Doctor Strange who's been doing this for the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
But,
the only kind of place it trips up itself, and obviously this is always a problem, is that something like, if this occurs, say, early 2010s and stuff, how come when stuff like the Sokovia Accords is mentioned, they don't mention, oh yeah, that time in Hong Kong that a building exploded and then randomly came back together again? Like,
well, because nobody remembers coming back together again.
Well,
really? He did the green turny thing. Everyone forgets.
Yeah, but does that mean it's never said explicitly that you forget? I mean, does anyone else, like, do you consciously feel that, or does it just happen? It's never really explored.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I do think it's kind of dumb at the end when they just really ham-fistedly go, "Oh, you shouldn't be walking around with an Infinity Stone," and it's like, oh, you could have.
That's
could have done that more subtly.
You are correct. That was yes.
Could have said like, "Oh yeah, this is an artifact from the long beginnings of the universe," without having to literally say what it is.
At that point, Wong really should have just looked at the camera and winked.
Yeah. Looked at the camera, winked, and just held up a poster for Infinity War.
Yeah. But man, they have got to get those things referenced in there so everybody knows what the Infinity Stones are.
Yes.
And so they're making a lot of stuff Infinity Stones, which maybe doesn't necessarily need to be. But I've lost track right now about where they all are. I know.
I can run you through them quickly if you want.
I don't care.
Okay.
Not quite enough.
I think we've got one left to find.
Nova Corps got one. Doctor Strange has one. One's in the head of
the Vision. The Collector has the Ether, and it's assumed that the Tesseract is still on Asgard.
Yeah.
And then
All right, so that's about what I thought.
And then there's one other that we don't know yet, which I think is the reality gem. Maybe
it must be.
Yeah,
I think.
I think yeah.
Because I mean, if you assume that the one that Doctor Strange had was the time, that was a gem, right?
Yeah.
The time gem.
And then Vision is soul. Oh no, I think the ether might be the reality gem actually.
Huh.
I know that the Guardians one is the power gem and the Tesseract is the space gem. But I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
you know,
we're just being nerds at this point.
I'm giving it more thought than it's earned, quite
Yes,
frankly.
yes.
So anyway, let's just roll and let's talk through the cast here. So playing Doctor Strange, who I think was probably the best casting that I've ever seen for one of these movies. I mean, next to maybe Chris Evans, who did a phenomenal job, but like Benedict Cumberbatch, you just kind of saw Doctor Strange when you see Benedict Cumberbatch.
It's interesting because obviously I know that they would have styled it a bit with makeup, but when I've seen depictions of him in really old comic books, it is weird how close it is and how accurate they got it.
Now, Benedict Cumberbatch, of course, he's known for Sherlock.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure he played Khan.
No, I think you'll find he played John Harrison because no one saw that twist coming. Yeah.
You know, even when I still haven't seen Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah, it's
okay. even only seeing the previews and seeing that character, I thought, oh, that's Khan.
Yeah. Well, I think I remember
they're just making him Khan.
I think I remember that like it had come through that he was in it, and for a while on his IMDb page, his character was listed as Khan, and then they very quickly changed it to John Harrison, and it's like no, that's But it's interesting. Like I'm somewhat surprised because obviously we don't know the extent of his contract, but he's a major actor. Like Sherlock's basically done, but he seems to be all over the place. And we've got to assume he signed a few picture long deal. Like we don't know for sure, but I think it's
I think we can assume a Doctor Strange too, because Mordo's still out there somewhere.
Yeah.
He's all but confirmed for Thor Ragnarok at this point.
Yeah, and he has to be in Infinity War.
And then he has to be in Infinity War. I mean, he's got a stinking Infinity Stone.
I was gonna say, at the very least, there has to be a scene where Thanos goes yoink.
Right. So I mean, you got to assume he's going to be there. Some upcoming projects he has. He's going to be the voice of the Grinch in an animated How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
He does a lot of voice work these days because obviously he was the voice of Dormammu as well. He was the voice of the dragon in The Hobbit. So.
You know what I also noticed? When he does his American accent, he sounds just like Tom Selleck.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. It's weird. It's kind of I'm so used to him being himself and being British that like I don't know. Like part of me thinks the accent sounds bad because I'm so used to him being British. Like
I mean, it's a decent accent. There are some actors where if I hear them in their like in their native tongue first, and then I hear them try to do an American accent, it's very off-putting to me. One of the big ones that occurs to me, I can't remember the actor's name, but he was in the Battlestar Galactica remake, and he played Apollo.
Okay.
And I can't even remember what the actor's name is, and I feel bad about that.
Not Jamie Bamber, is it?
Yeah, Jamie Bamber. Yeah, but. So before I ever saw the Battlestar Galactica new series, I had seen him in Law and Order UK.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, and I believe he's Irish, isn't he?
I couldn't tell you. He's not American. He's British in some capacity.
Right. So the first time I see him and I hear an American voice come out of his mouth, I was just taken aback. Like, whoa. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What is that?
The worst one I've ever had for that, and this is a stupid tangent, so I'll be quick. But do you know who Simon Baker is? He was the mentalist in the TV show.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Yes.
So obviously I knew him as American for ages. Saw an interview with him. Has the broadest, strongest Australian accent in the world, and I was exactly the same as you. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Now, to be fair, like anytime I hear Christian Bale do an interview in his Welsh accent, it's really odd. Although sometimes, and he will, and you know what? God bless Christian Bale for this kind of commitment. I have seen him carry the accent through the entire press cycle for a movie, where he will do his interviews in the American accent and continue to do them until the movie's released, and then he'll go back to Welsh.
Yeah.
well, I mean that's Chris Bale for you.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so on the whole, Benedict Cumberbatch, I think, solid pick.
Yeah, I liked him quite a bit. I mean, I don't have anything else to say. He fit the role exactly how you'd want Benedict Cumberbatch to fit the role of Stephen Strange. So, moving on, we have Mordo, played by, and I looked it up, Chiwetel Ejiofor. That is that man's name. Chiwetel, I am sorry. I'm presuming he's heard the previous Hero Talks where I've attempted
he's
to say his name.
an avid listener.
I'm sure. I mean, just, hey, Chiwetel, send an email or something.
Come on, man.
Get on Hero. I don't. He hasn't been on. So, but yeah, I mentioned him in. Obviously, he was. What else was he been in that I mentioned him? And he was in, I think, Salt. I think I remember him from being in the movie Salt. Yeah, which underrated movie. I actually really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, because obviously he got his big break in 12 Years a Slave. I feel like I've seen him in something else, and I almost want to look him up because it's gonna bug me.
Oh, Red Belt. He was in Red Belt.
I think it's it might be one of those things that I just know he's in it, but I might not have seen him in it properly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think I brought him up in. See, I haven't done a Serenity Hero Talk, but I think I might have brought him up in that. And I'm trying to think what other movie. I know for a fact it's been 3 movies on Hero Talk, but I cannot for the life of me think of what the other ones would have been.
Yeah, I'm certainly just not Googling him at the moment to try and sell my brain.
Oh, there is no chance I'm just scanning his IMDb.
Oh, of course, it's because he's in Love Actually. That's why.
Is he actually in Love Actually?
Yeah, he's Keira Knightley's husband.
Well,
so he's in the wedding at the beginning.
I will tell you, as an actor, he gets around.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at his IMDb as we speak, and yes.
I mean, he's probably one of the most talented actors I've ever seen, quite frankly.
And he's one of the big things that makes me excited for Doctor Strange 2, given that it's obviously they're lining him up to be the villain, and I think because they've given him like a film's worth of development, we could actually get a decent villain. Because I was thinking, like, how many decent deep Marvel villains have we had? And I'd say we had Loki. I'd say we've had Alexandra Pierce from Winter Soldier, and that's kind of it. Like, they're all pretty one note, like Obadiah Stane and Ronan the Accuser,
and I don't know what to call him, Whiplash.
Oh gosh, yeah, Whiplash, Ivan Vanka.
He was kind of an amalgamation of Whiplash and the Crimson Dynamo, but anyway, so there he is. So hey, we finally got his name right, Chiwetel Ejiofor. I like Chiwetel Ejiofor in anything he does. He's one of those actors where I just kind of want to see him in more roles. So it doesn't matter what role he. If he was cast as Doctor Strange, I would have been completely satisfied and happy. If he was cast as Christine Palmer, I would have been like, fine, he's gonna do a great job. I'll watch this.
Yeah, I'm good. So, I'm glad you mentioned Christine Palmer, because, in my opinion, sorry, I don't want to steal your thunder. Please tell everyone who she was played by.
You can say it. I know you're new, but you don't have to step on it. Okay. Yeah, Christine Palmer, played by Rachel McAdams.
Yeah, which is, fun fact, another Sherlock Holmes connection, because she played Irene Adler in the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes film. But I think she was horrifically underused.
Oh, desperately. The fact that let me give you some backstory here, everybody. So the character Christine Palmer, who's played by Rachel McAdams, is Night Nurse.
Oh god.
Night Nurse was the character that Rosario Dawson. Yes. Yeah, so Rosario Dawson was supposed to be playing Night Nurse in the Daredevil series, but then Marvel's all like, "Oh no, we're planning to use Night Nurse in the movies." So they had to sort of take Rosario Dawson's character and change her into Claire Temple, but still sort of make her Night Nurse because they wanted to use her for that position. And then you actually have, Christine Palmer as Night Nurse show up, and to see her so underused like this, it makes me so angry because you knew for a fact that she was going to be used well in what would you call it? The Daredevil universe? The Netflix...
The TV universe that isn't Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., basically.
Yeah, in the Netflix world, they would have used her, and she would have had a lot of use, a lot of lines, you'd have had a lot of development.
Yes.
And instead, we see that, Doctor Strange is just going to keep showing up and with people drop on her door.
Yeah, and it's just at the most base level. Like, Rachel McAdams is a major and a very talented actress, and you just use her for, like, 2 scenes.
I tell you, there was a period of my life where I was obsessed with Rachel McAdams, because she's a very talented actress, and she had this huge range of stuff she'd been in, and I don't remember what kicked it off, but I just decided, like, you know what, I'm going to start watching some of these movies. She's really good in a lot of stuff. And as I scan her IMDb, I've actually seen a significant most of these movies. I made a very conscious effort, so I can definitely see the cutoff where I stopped, because then there's a string that I haven't seen, but she was, first of all, she's got another Sherlock Holmes connection because she was in the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes series.
Yep.
Of course, Mean Girls. That's huge.
Yeah.
Let's see, Red Eye, The Family Stone, Wedding Crashers, The Notebook, The Hot Chick, That's what I have off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
I don't know if there's any else that are coming to you, but
No, you got my major ones.
oh, the Time Traveler's Wife. That's right.
Oh, of
She was in
course,
that.
with yeah.
Yeah, so I mean Rachel McAdams is phenomenally talented.
Yes.
Probably my favorite actress. Just no quantifiers there. My favorite actress is Rachel McAdams.
I can imagine in a hypothetical one, if you got her on the show, you'd just spend however long it was just being like, oh, just trying desperately to keep it together and just
Yeah,
falling
it'd be a whole like. Remember that Chris Farley skit from Saturday Night Live? Like, hey, remember when you were in Mean Girls?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, just you doing that, just going through her entire filmography.
Yeah. So horribly underused.
Yeah.
So I mean, not only underusing a very talented actress, but you're also underusing a character that would have probably had a little bit more respect in another franchise. But
yeah, in another franchise.
but
in
we
the same
have
universe,
plans for
kind
Nightmares.
of? Yeah. Who knows?
It's. I mean, listen, Rosario Dawson. She's doing an amazing job as Claire Temple.
Yes. Yeah.
But I mean, we all know who that's supposed to be. Every time she shows up, I know who that's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then to see, Christine Palmer show up now as Night Nurse and how little use she was going to have. And I mean, let's be honest, she's probably not going to be in Thor. She's probably not going to be in Infinity War. No. So, I mean, I just hope they don't give her the they don't give her the Jane treatment from Thor and just have her disappear.
I think she very much could get the Jane treatment because, like Natalie Portman, she's a major actress and she might just go, I'm not really fussed to sign like a 15-film deal and crop up all the time.
I mean, from her perspective, like, why would I sign to do 3 movies if I'm going to be in 4 scenes in each of them?
Yes.
Other than it might pay well. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a reader. Yeah.
Though to be fair, I don't think the MCU is massively at a loss for having lost Jane Foster. I'm just going to say it.
No, I mean, that's the problem with Jane Foster is, while I like Natalie Portman, Natalie Portman and Chris Hemsworth have about as much on-screen chemistry as maybe 2 rocks. If you place 2 rocks next to each other and seen them interact. Yeah.
I know who they should definitely use more in the MCU, and I'm not being sarcastic at all, is Darcy. I know.
Oh, I cannot stand Darcy.
Yes, I know.
Oh.
I'm just pulling your button. I'm just pushing your buttons.
Yeah, no, see, now I'm all mad. Yeah. Now I'm all worked up and mad. All right, so moving on.
Yeah.
So let's talk Wong.
Yep.
Who's a character who's very crucial to the Doctor Strange lore. He's I would say partner, sidekick, depends on who's writing it. Obviously, back when he was invented, it was a little less socially aware, but the character has evolved since then. But played by Benedict Wong.
Yeah.
This is a character actor. I promise you've seen him in other stuff. He's one of those guys where you look like, where do I know him from?
Yeah, I saw him,
everything.
I know, I saw him somewhere, and it implies that he's put on a huge amount of weight for this role.
Yeah, he's normally not that big.
Yeah, no,
he was bigger in Marco Polo, which was the Netflix series where he played Kublai Khan, and I'm wondering if maybe he's on the backswing of that.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, because there were a couple of things then. I saw him pictures of him when he was much slimmer, and he almost doesn't look like the same person, because like his face looks completely different.
Yeah, he looks totally different. But yeah, so as I said, he was Kublai Khan in Marco Polo. He was in that show Black Mirror, which people seem to like.
Yeah, that's on my list of things to watch.
He was in The Martian, which is a phenomenal movie. I liked Prometheus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's been in a ton of stuff. He was. Oh, also, you know who he was, and this is where it took me a while to figure this one out, because I'm just like, where am I not placing this guy? So remember in the IT Crowd when Moss was on Password?
Oh, Countdown. Yes, he's Oh my God, yes.
He's Prime.
He is. Oh my gosh. Let's have a game of Street Countdown.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What's Street Countdown? It's the same as regular Countdown, but we play it in the street. Well, how is that dangerous?
It's quite chilly. Cold. You might need a jacket.
I'm wearing long underwear. Oh, then you should be fine.
I love the IT Crowd.
I love the IT Crowd, and the final countdown was my favorite episode of the IT Crowd. By far.
That just makes me... I cannot believe... Oh...
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, because it was his voice. It was really like,
yes,
I know I've heard this guy talk before.
Yeah.
And I was, so that's why I decided to go back and like, what has he been in? What has he been in? What has he been in? And like, so I'm seeing things I've seen, and I'm like, no, that's not where I'm getting it from.
Yeah.
And so there it was.
You do get that when it's just you can know that you've seen someone in loads of things, but it's one particular thing, and your brain goes, oh my god, it's that guy.
Yeah. So that's where it was. I actually finally managed to go all the way back and figure out, yep. He was Prime.
Yep.
From the IT Crowd. So, So I liked him in it. I mean, I just like Benedict
Yes,
Wong in general.
yeah.
He's good in all of the stuff he's been in, and because I liked that episode so much, I could have liked Benedict Wong no matter what happened. So
I know. I think he had an interesting character. I think he's one of those people that, okay, near the end they maybe got him a bit comic relief-y, but I think there's some interesting depth to him.
So he is not slated for Thor Ragnarok. He is slated to return for Infinity War.
Oh, okay. Because it's interesting. I've been trying to keep a rough hand on who's going to be in Infinity War. And I know a while ago they mentioned some number of there being like 60 characters in it, and I've been trying to do the maths and kind of work out who that will mean. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just annoyed that probably the Netflix lot and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. won't be in there, because I know exactly why that's the case, because obviously, like, you can't put characters in that some of your audience have no idea who they are because they've not watched the other shows. But then there's part of my brain that goes, no one's going to turn up to Infinity War as their first Marvel movie and be like, right, I'm going to get into this Marvel thing 15 films in. Like, I understand why they have to do it, but it annoys me because outside of the films, they've created some amazing characters.
Yeah. A part of it disappoints me a little bit, and part of it just almost is like, can we just keep these guys street level?
Yeah.
You know, like, do I want to see Daredevil try to take on Thanos?
Okay, yeah, there are some points where, I think with the Netflix lot, you're right, but I think with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. lot, they're bringing in Inhumans, so if you look at the sort of, like, Quake/Daisy, she could hold her own in a fight against most things, and obviously they've now brought in Ghost Rider and stuff, like... Mm-hmm. I think it's there, and I understand entirely what they're doing, and it just annoys me that they've kind of gone, oh yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the same universe, but not quite the same timeline. Because it makes no sense! Like, there is literally an episode where they go to London to clean up the destruction after Thor 2. And it's like, this is clearly the same universe. Just make Coulson not be dead. Sorry.
Yeah, they don't want to do it, and they don't. So anyway, let's move on. There's only a couple more people I really want to hit on this list, because I don't care about everybody all the way down. I don't know if we have any really big fans of Hammer here, but I'm not going to talk about him. So anyway, so next is the villain. I don't know how to say this guy's name. Caecilius?
Caecilius.
No, I know how to say Mads Mikkelsen.
Sorry,
I don't know how to say...
Caecilius.
They said it like 100 times, and like I don't know who that is.
Caecilius.
Caecilius?
Yeah.
Yeah, so playing Caecilius is Mads Mikkelsen, who, I mean, when you see that Mads Mikkelsen is cast in the movie, you almost sit there and say, like, well, he's the villain, obviously.
Yeah, ever since he played Le Chiffre in Casino Royale, and I think he played one of the best Bond villains we've had in ages.
So Casino Royale is my favorite Bond film.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. Despite my love for the slightly ridiculous Pierce Brosnan era, I think I'm with you.
No, I can't stand Pierce Brosnan, and it's not a bad thing per se. It's just that when I see Pierce Brosnan, I think Remington Steele.
Okay, which is
and so it made that whole series of movies just feel like a Remington Steele offshoot.
Yeah. And there was a whole thing that, like, he was set to be Bond earlier, but because he was doing Remington Steele, he couldn't. Mm-hmm. Whereas I kind of had the kind of thing of, like, I might end up seeing, like, Mamma Mia, and I'm like, no, what are you doing? You're supposed to be, like, this dapper secret agent, what are you doing? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I also knew him from Mrs. Doubtfire, so I don't necessarily keep him in that high regard. So, But anyway, so Mads Mikkelsen, of course, was... He's been... I mean, what hasn't he been in?
Yeah, because he's Hannibal, he's going to be in the Death Stranding video game, apparently. Lots of things.
That's interesting.
Have you not seen that? There's just I only see it secondhand, but basically Hideo Kojima's Twitter feed at the moment is just constantly him taking pictures with Mads Mikkelsen and being like so happy.
Well, if I got to hang with Mads Mikkelsen, I'd probably be pretty happy too.
That's fair. Yeah.
But, played Caecilius. I mean, he did a good job. I mean, he's Mads Mikkelsen. You got exactly what you thought.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
He played the villain. It was almost like Le Chiffre was back.
Kind of, but I think slightly less menacing, because you can't be quite as menacing when you're, like, running up a wall and throwing, like, shards of colour and explosions at people. But yeah, I get what you mean.
So the character, he is actually from the comics, Caecilius. I looked him up because I couldn't remember who, because up until now I've known who the people were when they were introduced. And then Caecilius, I'm like, wait, who's this guy?
Yeah.
And so apparently he was like, he worked with Baron Mordo, who I think is what Mordo is supposed to be, Baron Mordo.
I wouldn't be surprised if like he'll adopt that title in the next film or something. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, they took some liberties with him, but that's fine. Baron Mordo is not really a character that I think the lore is super necessary, and you have to be super strict and faithful to it. I think you can.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think any of these characters need to be super faithful to the lore. You do what works. It's a movie. It's the same. But he was he did want to have to like he was involved in the story about trying to get Dormammu's power, which is another character that I recognized immediately was Dormammu. Yeah. So he is from the comic books, and he is a Doctor Strange villain, him and Mordo. But I mean, there you go.
Yeah, it's because it's funny actually. I'm not much of a comics person, but I've actually managed to gain a lot of my wider Marvel knowledge from the Lego Marvel game from a few years ago.
Oh,
which,
yeah,
funny enough, has just had a sequel announced, and I'm actually super excited. But yes, like that had people like Mysterio and Dormammu crop up in it, which I'm now starting to hear in the context of the films, and I'm like, oh, I kind of understand who these people are.
I like Mysterio. He was involved in he was involved in a Daredevil story I kind of like.
Huh.
Yeah. So anyway, which was written by Kevin Smith.
Okay.
Who. When you can ever get him to sit down and write a comic is a decent. I mean, obviously the guy's a talented writer. That's sort of how he made a name for himself.
Yeah.
But all right. So anyway, so now the last one in the cast before we roll, because I don't want to spend forever talking about the cast.
No, it's fine.
Cast. So we have the Ancient One.
Yep.
Played by Tilda Swinton. Now, there is a big, long story of why Tilda Swinton ends up playing the Ancient One.
There was a lot of controversy about this.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about any of it.
Okay.
So Tilda Swinton, I think I first became aware of Tilda Swinton in Constantine.
Okay.
Where she played the Angel Gabriel. I think who else? What else has she been in? She's been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Vanilla Sky. She was in Vanilla Sky. That's another one.
Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer, yes.
I don't think I've actually seen her in that many things. I'm aware of her. She's been back in the news a bit recently because was in the running to be the next Doctor Who, though I think that's quite unlikely.
I'm not a Whovian, so I couldn't really say either way, but she's
a
very talented actress. I would love to see her as Doctor Who. She was the White Witch in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, there's debate going on at the moment of will there be a female Doctor Who or not, with different people saying conflicting things.
I mean, I don't know much about the Who lore, but can't the Doctor regenerate into?
Exactly, it's quite funny. They've been laying the groundwork for this to kind of say gender can change, to the point where in the last series there was a regeneration that was a change in gender and a change in race. So it's kind of the implication that it's kind of personal choice, and this is especially true with Peter Capaldi at the moment, because there's a whole point of he very deliberately picked the face he has so they could explain how Peter Capaldi was in Doctor Who about a few years back. So yeah, they're subtly expanding the law to say we could do this, but I don't know. Like, I have no problem with it either way. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't affect me at all, because no matter who you pick, I'm not going to watch it.
Oh, Greg.
But anyway, so that's Tilda Swinton. Like I said, the big thing I remember her from was Constantine, which she played Gabriel, and I like her. She's a very talented actor. She did a fine job with the role.
Yes. Yeah, she did that nice role of, I'm clearly not letting on everything I know. Like, I'm just going to tell you what I think you need to know. And kind of, I think, again, there was a lot of depth to her character. I think it's a bit of a shame that they killed her off, spoilers, but I understand why they had to. Partly just to give Doctor Strange the title of Sorcerer Supreme, which he has now.
Yeah. Does he actually have the title? Like, when they ended the movie, they made it sound like, well, people are going to come by, they've always been a sorcerer. It's made it seem like the title was vacant.
Well, the assumption I got was that anyone who was looking after a sanctum got that title, and because they were like, the New York sanctum needs a protector, because seemingly the entire Marvel universe happens in New York. That was the impression I got.
I mean, I could see them, and they did at that point call him Master Strange.
Yes,
I do enjoy that. Even though he's now a sorcerer, he still appreciates the title Doctor.
Yeah, that's the stupid bit where he's introducing himself to Celius, and he calls him Mr. Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
it's quite funny, but
Mr. Doctor, Strange. Yes, it is a bit weird. Yeah.
It's kind of like, that was one of the jokes that, like, if it wasn't, is definitely what I like to think of as a trailer joke.
Yes. Although I don't remember that from the trailer.
The one trailer joke I remember, and it still annoys me, is the bit with Mordo and the Wi-Fi password. That was in all the trailers.
It sure was.
And it's like,
and that it's a shame because it's not a bad joke.
I was gonna say it's one of those things that it would have been a good joke if we hadn't seen it 500 times before the film came out.
Right. If they just like left something to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Tilda Swinton, just to point out, she is attached to a future project coming out this year called War Machine.
Ooh.
Not that War Machine.
Of course, you'd love a War Machine film because you love it.
Of course, I would love a War Machine film, and I would be at that, which is why I got excited when I saw that inner credit. And then I'm like, no, it's not that War Machine. All right, you know what? We're done. We're done with the cast. Yep. I'm not going to talk about anybody else except for Chris Hemsworth does show up at the very end.
He does. Because there is, I think I've seen like a shot on set from Thor Ragnarok whereby Thor and or Loki gets handed a bit of paper with the address of the New York Sanctum on it. So that's why they go to see him.
Yeah. So it almost feels like we're going to see that exact scene play out.
Yeah, but I'd be very surprised if they do that, given that they've never done that in the past. The few times.
Oh yeah, they did. They did that at the end of Ant-Man. They showed it was abbreviated, but they showed the scene from Civil War where Falcon. Sorry. It was Falcon who says, "Yeah, I know a guy."
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, no, that's fair. Because Ant-Man is one of the few films I've not seen repeatedly. I don't know why. I quite enjoy it, but
I liked it. I was on a plane, and so I saw Ant-Man and Civil War back to back, which made that kind of convenient.
Yeah.
When they say Ant-Man will return in Civil War, I'm like, well, let me get right on that.
Yep.
All right. So that's it with the cast. So let's talk about the movie in general and some specific scenes that we like. I gotta be honest with you. I really felt that the story was hurting.
Yes.
And as I said right at the top of the cast, it's Doctor Strange is a hard character to do a story for anyway. I like him better when he just kind of shows up and he messes up some stuff and then he leaves. That's why I think he'll probably be great in Thor Ragnarok, because that's exactly what this character is meant for. Him and Ghost Rider can never have their own series. They need to just show up in everybody else's series all the time.
Yes.
So we'll see. But
yeah.
I had a hard time sort of getting into what was happening, and I was never really super clear on, all right, so is he just a rank amateur at this scene, or is he supposed to be more accomplished?
His development's a bit weird. They keep dropping hints that like, oh, no one's like learnt at the rate you've learnt before, and he makes that weird comment about having a photographic memory, which they just seem to slip in out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And bits of it. I think the story did lack, and I think there are a couple bits of dialogue that you can tell, like we were kind of saying, you said at the beginning, that they were trying to do broader things, like that very telling bit of dialogue where like Tilda Swinton says, "Oh, we use magic, but if that offends your modern sensibilities," so it's kind of like they don't want to put magic in the MCU, like. Even if you look at Thor, who is kind of basically a magical being, they instead go, oh no, they're basically just like a hyper advanced race of aliens, effectively. Like,
they go out of their way to make it seem like these are not the actual Norse gods.
Yeah, like,
they're just advanced beings.
Yeah, as ridiculous as this sounds in the context of the Marvel Universe, they try and keep it quite grounded, relatively speaking.
Right.
Like, I think as grounded as it can be in the context of what goes on.
I mean, they don't overuse their suspension of disbelief.
Yes, which I think is quite important, because I think at this point there's kind of it's accepted now. If you put Marvel Studios in front of a film, it's going to be pretty decent. Okay, we've had some rough films, but I think
we've had some rough films.
Yeah, but I think if you look at like their success rate, like it's difficult to kind of draw direct comparisons because no kind of film series has kind of done this. Like you can't compare them with the James Bond films because you're using the same character, but it's like no, they're all standalone things. Like there's no direct kind of cinematographic comparison, with the possible exception of the DC universe, but let's not talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll get to the DC universe, I imagine, eventually, but I don't know. I was really having a hard time sometimes keeping up with, like, when Doctor Strange is confronting one of Mads Mikkelsen's friends.
Yes.
I can't say it. I lost it already.
Caecilius.
That guy.
Yeah.
I never get the idea of, like, so should he be able to hold his own against this guy, or is this a fair fight? I mean, because especially when you see that the Guardian of the New York Sanctum goes down so quickly.
Yeah, I think that's
so quickly.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the attempt to go. I mean, look how much power they have, And then it's kind of weird that later on they then Strange has the fight with that guy that he basically kills by defibrillating himself, which kind of implies that like he doesn't have the skill in and of himself to defeat him, so he's having to use like outside influences, kind of.
Yeah, but I mean, then at the same time, when Mads Mikkelsen comes after him, he's able to relatively hold his own.
Yes.
And quite frankly, the cloak of levitation did better than he ever could.
Yeah, yeah.
The cloak is what they needed. Apparently,
Yes.
that was.
Definitely. Just this kind of comes under major scenes, and I know kind of everyone's spoken about this, but I do think they should be applauded for the visual effects on this.
The visual effects were very well done, and not just like the Inception bending of the worlds around and everything like that.
If anything, I think that was the weaker section. I genuinely think the bit near the beginning where he's like flying through reality is properly impressive.
I thought that got on a bit long.
Yeah, it did. Like they could have shrunk that scene down quite substantially.
Yeah, I wrote that in my notes. The line here says acid trip ... too long.
Nothing worse than an acid trip that's too long.
Absolutely not. Yeah, but it seemed like it felt like padding because you could what you're trying to get across in that scene could have happened in a third of the time.
Yeah.
So for these movies are getting really long, Nick, and so
definitely.
I start to notice when you're doing things that are making them longer than they have to be. I don't like that.
Yeah. There was, I remember when I first thought it, a small part of me that thought, are they going to slip us Thanos or something in there, maybe? But no.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so moving on, we can get past that stuff. There are some things they do in this movie, which is just, they're the tropes that always happen, but like, remember when Doctor Strange was in the secret library?
Yeah.
And he picks that one random book to look at, and it flips right to the page that got ripped out. Like, come on, guys. You couldn't figure out an organic way to have that happen? You just...
Yeah. And I like how, like, no one had thought that, it doesn't matter, they've stolen the pages, we can just go back in time and replace them. And you kind of think, surely if that, like, their kind of rules of time manipulation are a bit weird. So it's like, surely if you're reversing time, that should have got rid of Kaikidis' copy of those pages.
Yeah, the way I like to think of it is they're using the Flash Legends of Tomorrow rules of time travel, which is we make it up as we go.
Yep.
This will only affect things if we need it to affect things for the story. Yes. Otherwise, it won't affect anything.
Yeah, and it's kind of, they make that offhand comment when he's experimenting with it of like, you could fracture the universe just so they have the time loop bit at the end, which I will say is quite an interesting.
I mean, in terms of Chekhov's gun, I like that one because when they said it that way, I didn't immediately think that was what was going to be used to defeat Dormammu.
Yes.
So I'm all about. Most of these movies have Chekhov's gun. It's in most of them. But at the same time, I don't want to recognize it. I don't want them, to say it in such a way where I know it's going to be important later. And so I appreciate it when I don't see it coming, and I didn't see it coming. FYI, I need to go back to the cast real quick.
Yep.
It was a small part, but the Jonathan Pangborn, the man who introduced Doctor Strange to the concept of going, was played by Benjamin Bratt, who's been in a ton of stuff. He was in Law and Order for a while, Miss Congeniality, he was in Despicable Me, he was in, or at least Despicable Me 2. So he voiced Superman in the he's been mentioned on Hero Talk in the past. He's been in a ton of stuff. He's from Snitch.
Yeah, I'm just in the same.
But anyway, he was in Catwoman. He was in Catwoman.
Yeah, I've got this exact same situation of I'm pretty sure there's going to be one, and I've just found the one thing that reminded me. He was in the latest series of 24, the one that was set in the UK.
Oh, yep. And he was in Demolition Man.
I've never watched that, but I keep hearing that crop up. I think it's got a bit of a cult status.
It is objectively speaking, it's a terrible, terrible 90s action flick. However, it is awesome at the exact same time. I can't explain it. But
I know what you mean. It's like, funny enough, I was watching Fast and Furious 7 last night, and those films are terrible. They're objectively bad, but I love them because they're so ridiculous.
Yeah, the nice thing about Demolition Man was not only is it like a ridiculous action flick in there, but there's a lot of little subtle things they throw in Like they were definitely, they weren't just punting it. They were putting in they knew what they were making, and they put in a level of effort you don't normally see for that level of film. And it's definitely noticeable because there's lots of little things that you'll pick up on the second, third, fourth, fifth watching, and yes, I've seen it that many times.
I'm not judging you too much, don't worry.
No, that's fine. All right, so I just realized that, like, oh shoot, Benjamin Bratt was in this. We should probably at least mention him since he's an old favorite. All right, so taking off that, coming back to the movie and some main points I want to make. So I want to talk about what were those rings they were called that they always were wearing?
The sling rings.
The sling ring, yeah. I had such a terrible time figuring out who had a sling ring and who didn't in any given scene. Because there was a very important point at one point where
he loses one. Yeah.
He loses one, but then I mean he must have gotten it back because he used it to make the portal into the broom closet.
Yeah, I think he steals one of the one-off Caeculus' henchmen or something.
Right, which was the one I think was technically stolen from him when he sent that guy to wherever he sent him.
Yeah. Like,
see, you see what I'm saying though? Like there was more than once where I had to rewind the movie and go back and see, like, all right, so who has a sling ring?
Yeah, like I almost think if it was something like a gauntlet, something that was much more visible, it'd be much easier to keep track of.
Right. I mean, even to the point where when Doctor Strange steals the sling ring from Mads Mikkelsen, basically he does it so quickly that I sit there and I think, wait, so where did he get a sling? Why does he think they don't have a sling ring? Did he take his sling ring? What just happened there? Yeah. Because it's very subtle. He kind of bumps into him, and that's supposed to be the grab of the sling ring, and then he runs. Yeah. But I would have thought he would have already had his own sling ring, maybe, so he didn't. I don't know. It was. Yeah. I was always kind of having a trouble figuring out, and I didn't like the sling rings in general, because not only could I not figure them out, but then there's that scene where the Ancient One strands Doctor Strange on Everest, so that he'll have to come back in order to save himself. And I get the idea it's supposed to be so cold there that if he doesn't do it, then he's not going to be able to survive. Although I think it's so cold on top of Everest that even being there unprotected would have sent him into shock.
Well, yeah, that's the joke. That's the kind of point they make. Like, they're like, in theory, you could survive for like 15 minutes, but the shock will kill you in 2. Like,
I think it would take less than 2 minutes. I mean, it's supposed to, and plus, there's no oxygen up there.
Yeah, or it's very thin. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, he would have passed out. Can you imagine just immediately going from being able to breathe to thinning the air on you like that? He'd pass out.
Yeah, I think the shock on your body. Yeah, you probably would.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you can't just step from sea level to Everest and just be okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's
I mean, people climb it gradually and they aren't okay, and so he can't just all of a sudden have less air and just be okay with that.
Yeah.
And it's these. I don't like scenes like this happen in a lot of movies where, like, oh well, I'm putting you in a dangerous situation now and forcing you to do it, and that's how you do it. Like, no, that's not actually. That doesn't actually work.
Yeah.
I just envision like a football coach saying, like, oh well, you need to learn to run, and so to teach you to run, I'm going to release these jackals on you. Like, no, you're just going to get that guy mauled. That's not actually how it works.
The one thing with the sling rings that I think worked well, partly because of kind of how it interacted with and kind of Doctor Strange's characters and motivation, is the bit where he's like, look, I can't do this, my hands won't stop shaking, and then the Ancient One's like, look, this guy's only got one hand and he can do it fine. Yeah. Like, that was quite that was an interesting scene, and just as a way to go to Doctor Strange, look, it's not about that, it's not about what you can and what you think you can and can't do. Mm-hmm.
I noticed that his hands were still shaking at the end.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the point that, like, well, my interpretation of it was kind of like he realized that his goal was no longer about quote unquote fixing his hand. It was because that was never going to happen. It was just about mastering his kind of skill. But then his hands are still shaking, yet they make a whole big point of proving at one point that his hands are steady enough to shave.
Yeah. Although they did shake a bit when he was shaving too.
Yeah, but you kind of think, like, if you look kind of how kind of intricate the beard he shaves for himself, like when I'm shaving, I end up cutting myself occasionally, like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's I cannot get an intricate, symmetrical goatee like that. So that's. Yeah. But when you figure, like, so even if you aren't going to try to be a surgeon and just get get your life back. You could still use the magic to have, like, steady, workable use of your hands.
Well, yeah, like they make the whole point of that's exactly what Jonathan Pangborn does. He basically puts magic into his spine. So why could Strange just not put magic into his hands?
Yeah, I don't think in the comics his hand state. Although I think at one point in the comic books, Hulk crushes his hands. So.
Oh yeah.
And as long as we're talking about his hands and his physical therapy, he refers to his physical therapist. Or it could have been his occupational therapist. I didn't get a good impression about which role that person was, but he refers to them as bachelor's degree, which is objectively wrong because it's
yeah, you need a doctorate.
You need at least a master's, and in fact, most of those programs now require a doctorate in order to practice. So
yeah,
it just seemed like it was unnecessarily mean.
Yep.
I was gonna look real quick to see if I could even figure out find that guy for his acting credit, just to give him a shout out, but I can't even see. Oh, there he is. So he was all right. So this is important to note because he was in the script. He was physical therapist.
Wow.
And so I can say now with a surety that to practice physical therapy in the state of New York, you need to have a doctorate of physical therapy. So that was not bachelor's degree. He would have had the same level of education as Doctor Strange.
Yes.
And played by Kobna Holbrook Smith.
There you go. You give him the justice he deserves.
Yeah, give him the shout out. I mean, Doctor Strange is a big thing. He's this guy. His IMDb is huge.
Huh.
He's a character actor, so he shows up in things. Let's see, like he was a voice in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag.
Ugh.
Just additional voices. He's been.
One of those, yeah.
He'll show up on shows. He was in. Oh, he was. I know who this guy is. He was in the show Sirens. Sirens was a show about Chicago paramedics, like not Chicago Med. It was a comedy show. It was created by Dennis Leary.
Okay.
One of the characters from Arrow this season also came from that show. So there it is. Okay, so yeah, he was Ryan in Sirens. I didn't even recognize him. I watched Sirens, so that's why it's kind of odd. All right. Anyway, so gave him his shout out, and also gave a shout out to the fact that as a physical therapist, he would have had a doctorate. Although he's an old enough actor that he might be grandfathered in with his master's degree, but still not a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
And also want to point out that despite, everyone likes to think that, oh, well, doctor is higher, so therefore they know everything. Doctors don't know how a lot of this stuff works the same way a physical therapist would.
Yeah.
When a physical therapist goes to a doctor's office with like a pulled muscle or something, the doctor asks the physical therapist, hey, what do you think you should do to get this fixed?
Yeah. And the fun fact is a lot of doctors, when they kind of go the next step up, actually often stop using their title. Like when a lot of doctors become consultants, they're being back to being Mr. or Mrs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a position of seniority in some ways, but
I mean, yeah, it was very odd that like the guy who's the neurosurgeon would not have the same level of knowledge, especially when he said like, oh, I could have done my hands better. I'm like, okay, well, maybe you're just saying that as like a matter of your personal skill, but you don't know the muscular structure well enough to do what needed to be done because you're a neurosurgeon and that was your, It doesn't turn into this whole all-encompassing, I know everything about everything. I mean, that's why there are physical therapists, is because you need a completely separate path to learn how the muscles work and their recovery process. And some random surgeon, even if he's the best neurosurgeon in the world, isn't going to know that stuff, and he's not going to have the same level. So if you try to make it sound like he knows more than the physical therapist, he probably doesn't.
No.
And to call him bachelor's degree was just, as I said, objectively wrong. So moving on, couple more points before we close out here. The Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah.
Do you know what he was reading? Was that supposed to be something of note?
Yeah, it was some I can't remember the exact title, but it's some mystical book that's like exploring your soul or something kind of mystical and mysticism. Just to give us, have you heard about how, I won't say it explicitly, but in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, they actually go and basically, to some extent, prove a fan theory about how all these cameos link.
I've heard about that. That. Because there was I know what the popular theory is, and it's probably the best rationale for it, I would imagine. But I've heard that gets, if not outright, then at least implicitly confirmed.
No, it's very outright.
Yeah. So I've heard that, and I think that works well. I mean, I don't want to sound too morbid here, but I mean, Stan Lee is not a young guy.
No, and they have made a lot of points that like when he was filming some, he filmed like 3 together, and yeah, they're very aware that this is a joke that can only go on for so long.
Right, and I so you're gonna feel bad if it ever stops. But I don't want him to replace him with somebody else because
No, I don't think they would.
yeah, it just seems like when you confirmed the fan theory, then you kind of made it problematic. But obviously Stan Lee's health is the outright here. But at the same time, it'll be sad when he goes, and then that character will objectively go as well.
Yeah.
All right, we've already said too much. So one last thing. And then if you have any other points to bring up, but this kind of bothered me a little bit. So they make an explicit point. There are 3 sanctums.
Yep.
There's the London sanctum, the Hong Kong sanctum, and the New York sanctum. Because of course there's a New York sanctum.
Of course.
Couldn't be in Boston or anything like that. Had to be in New York City. Or Canton, Ohio. Couldn't have just.
Yeah, no.
It just seemed like all right. But anyway, so New York. Everything's in New York. It's Marvel.
Yeah.
They love New York.
They do.
So London falls.
Yep.
And then you have New York and Hong Kong left. And so Mads Mikkelsen and his crew, they attack New York once. Doesn't work out so great. They come back, attack it again. Still doesn't work out so great. And they're like, so where do you think he's going to go next? I'm like, well, it must be Hong Kong. Like, wait, so he's not... Is he just giving up on New York? Or what's going on?
I know what you're getting at, but it's kind of... If you're attacking somewhere that is heavily defended and you keep losing, it kind of does make logical sense from almost a military perspective to try an alternative target that perhaps won't be as heavily defended. Like, okay, you could kind of cynically say they just wanted a new location for a big set piece, but there is
which is why it happened, yeah.
Which I think there is kind of logic to it. It's kind of like, why would you keep going back to a fight that you know you're probably going to lose?
Yeah, but it's not like he lost decisively. Like one time was definitely a fluke.
Yeah.
But it just kind of seemed odd that when he went back to regroup, he just decided, whatever, we'll just hit Hong Kong.
Yeah, which to some extent was a good idea because he nearly succeeded.
Yeah, and then when Hong Kong fell, then Dormammu started coming through.
Yeah.
Which I thought, like, so is this like just a 2 out of 3 thing? Because if it's really just a 2 out of 3 thing, then it makes perfect sense. Well, I'll just go to Hong Kong then.
Yeah.
I'm gonna whatever. Apparently, there's some weird stuff going on in New York I don't want to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit weird, and yeah, I'm just trying to think of my geography in my head, and I was kind of thinking, with 3 locations in those areas, how effectively could they like cover the entire planet? Surely
they weren't like, yeah, I know what you're thinking, like geometry speaking.
Yeah,
they weren't in the prime spaces to like equal coverage.
Yeah, surely you need like one in like Antarctica or something.
Yeah, I was even thinking that, like, maybe Australia and Antarctica could get one. Are we just not concerned? Does magic not work as well in the cold?
Who knows? So yeah, but that's just just us being pernickety.
Yeah, all right. And one quick point, just to point this out, because I thought it was interesting. Somebody who actually wanted to play the character of Doctor Strange before they got Benedict Cumberbatch was Patrick Dempsey.
Ugh.
Yeah, he does not look the part the same way. I see Patrick Dempsey, I kind of see a Mr. Fantastic, to be honest.
Yes, I think he can do that kind of almost a bit more campy style of superhero, but I'm not sure. Like I know him predominantly from Grey's Anatomy, where he's just kind of a serious kind of character, but it's kind of in that way that like Grey's Anatomy is still kind of has like, it's a drama, but it has like rom-com, sitcom-y elements. Like,
yes,
I don't know. I don't know how well he could play properly serious. Like I don't know if you know that he was in the running to play House before.
I had heard that. Yeah.
Before Hugh Laurie got it, and I was kind of like, I'm not sure if he could have done the grouchiness that Hugh Laurie does so well.
I mean, Hugh Laurie was. I really feel like he caught lightning in a bottle because.
Yes.
Even though the cantankerous doctor is obviously a trope that shows up a lot of times in this very movie, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
And but it was still, to do it the way House does it is very difficult, because you have your John C. McGinley's playing Dr. Cox on Scrubs, who's a very similar character, and then
to the point where there's one episode where Dr. Cox becomes House.
Yes,
very obviously, which makes me laugh.
I enjoy that episode. I believe the title of that episode was My House.
Yes, it was. But and do you know that Hugh Laurie actually ended up developing a bit of a limp, an actual limp, from walking with a pretend limp for like 8 seasons?
I did not know that. I have noticed, because it has been pointed out to me numerous times, is that Hugh Laurie, when he walks with his cane, on House walks incorrectly.
Oh, okay.
He holds the cane in the wrong hand for which side his limp is supposed to be on.
That's an interesting thing about kind of portraying things like that in the right way. Like I think I read somewhere that in terms of Daredevil, Charlie Cox has been actually really praised by the blind community for how he portrays someone who's blind. Like they don't make that kind of mistakes. Even though technically speaking, he's not completely blind, but that's a different problem.
Right. But in Daredevil, they do a really good job of, okay, so he can see stuff and people around him, but he can't read.
Yeah.
You know? So, and that was a lot of, in the comic books, early Daredevil was like, he could sense the vibrations through the paper so he could read.
Yeah, I heard that somewhere, and it's like, what?
Yeah, which is dumb, and I'm glad that they just, he has better reflexes, and then he can see people and things and hear things that aren't, that most people couldn't hear, but at the end of the day, I mean, the man is still blind.
Yeah.
He can't read. He has to still fold up his money when he puts it in his wallet and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But,
anyway, we got massively off topic again.
Yeah, it happens. It happens, as is the hero talk way. We've gotten off topic. So that's really all I really wanted to bring up about this movie. I think we've kind of talked it to death a little bit, but we hit all of my major talking points. Anything else?
No, I didn't really have, it's just thinking about favourite scenes. Like, I was kind of thinking, there are some Marvel films that, for me, they stick in my mind having a real favourite scene. So, like, the big final fight at the end of Iron Man 3 and stuff like that. Whereas nothing really in this film stuck out to me of, like, when I think Doctor Strange, that's what I think.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I was, because obviously now is the time on Hero Talk where we talk about what our favourite part of the movie was. And I was really trying to rack my brain with what is my favorite part of this.
Yeah.
Because I mean it was entertaining. It's all just kind of, it just is all on a plateau for me.
Yeah. The one bit, and it's literally just because it's like one shot, is the bit where he's fighting with Caecilius in New York, and he gets like thrown down the thing, and the cape of levitation comes after him, and then he comes up and he's like flying up, and the music's swelling, and it's kind of the really heavy-handed way of saying he's actually Doctor Strange, the superhero now. And it's kind of like when they've reached the point in any of these films where like they've adopted and they have become the character they were always building to. So like the first time you see Captain America in his uniform, the first time you see Iron Man in his suit, and like that kind of moment.
Yeah. Although to be honest, I think I saw Captain America as Captain America when he like was in the half motorcycle gear with the helmet on.
Yeah.
Although technically he had his suit already because he was already Captain America. Captain America is a unique animal all to itself. So, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Like,
yeah,
the first time we saw Tony in the black or in the red and gold, I don't know where black came from. Yeah, but because while we've seen him in a couple of suits, and I do like that the suit that he built in the cave was a nice throwback to the suit in the comics that he built in the cave.
But yeah, that's the first kind of proper suit you see.
Right. But yeah, I mean, at that point, that's when you're really seeing it. Like, especially when he's got the eye on and he's got the suit on. You're like, that's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, it's worth noting that in this whole movie, your favorite part was one scene where he flies up.
Yes, and it's that's in and of itself quite telling, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I'm still struggling, to be honest with you. Like I walked into this knowing I'm gonna just pick it on the fly, and even now I'm saying I don't know, maybe that part where Wong laughed at the end, that was kind of funny.
Yeah, that's quite good. Yeah, even though you kind of maybe saw a joke like that coming, right? Kind of set up the whole time, but he doesn't have the sense of humor like they do with Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy as well.
Mm-hmm. I will say though, and maybe this should probably stand in, is that when he finally Doctor Strange confronts Dormammu and he sets up and he basically he breaks time there just to set up that infinite loop.
Yeah.
And you see that he's like, I'm just gonna keep killing you and you'll suffer for eternity. He's like, yep, but you won't be bothering Earth.
Yeah, and the quite nice thing of like they come up with that you see a few different versions of him dying. So like there's one where like he starts to kind of fight and defend himself, and you think, oh, maybe something will happen. They just get straight up murdered. There's one where like Dormammu just like fires a massive laser or something, and he just gets obliterated. Like, yeah, it's sometimes difficult when you're watching anything where they make a whole point of like looping a particular thing.
Yeah. It made me wonder, though, and I will say this, what would have happened if Dormammu had just decided, instead of killing Doctor Strange, to just say, well, okay then, you just stay here, I'm going to keep invading Earth.
Well, no, I think the implication is he couldn't. He's essentially stuck in that single 30 seconds or whatever.
Okay.
So, like, that's kind of the point of it. He's effectively imprisoned.
Okay, I got it. All right.
Imagine effectively he's locked in a room, effectively.
So even if he didn't kill him, in 30 seconds, Doctor Strange is still going to show up again. And
exactly.
ask the bargain.
There's no way to break the cycle unless Doctor Strange does so. That was, I think, the implication. So yeah, the whole point is he'd stopped Dormammu's invasion of Earth. He'd made the sacrifice, but the sacrifice was he would then be stuck in that time loop as well.
Yeah. Which, in terms of, because a lot of times when you have a character like Doctor Strange who's still a little bit egotistical and full of himself, and he needs to do something selfless, sometimes that thing that's selfless is very, very forced and very...
Yes.
It was like... Like you sit there and you think, well, I'm so glad that all of these outside factors align themselves in such a way that you could do this thing and be selfless. But in this case, I just thought like, well, he actually took a huge hit to save Earth. Basically saying, hey, you know what? I will spend the rest of eternity getting killed by you in this 30-second loop if it keeps you off Earth.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, kudos on Dormammu for honoring his half of the deal.
That is the kind of one thing that kind of stuck with me, that like obviously we don't know how many, we only get shown like say 5 or 6 loops, so it could have gone on much longer, but it is kind of weird that Dormammu is like no, fine.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if the implication is there that it's been actually going on for like thousands of years or whatever, but I don't know. It did feel a bit weird, like he just fine. This like massive cosmic entity is just like fine.
Yeah. But I like to think, given that they showed us a montage, this was at least an extended... It was beyond 30 minutes, you know. It was at least days, if not years, in that loop before he finally broke.
I wonder if that's how they can then explain the kind of time disparity between, obviously, the references to Iron Man 2 all the way up to during Thor Ragnarok at the end. So if we take Iron Man 2, it's what? 2010, 2011, that's at least when the film came out. So they're about 4 years behind the kind of current Marvel timeline, 4 or 5 years. So I wonder if they'll conveniently go, yeah, that's exactly how long Doctor Strange spent looped with Dormammu, just so they can kind of sort that out.
I don't know. I mean, I had the impression that, like, while he was in that eternity looped with Dormammu, Earth stood still, basically.
Yeah, possibly. As we said, they're not very clear on their time rules.
Yeah, because when he comes back, he ends up coming back before he left, so... I mean, even if Earth didn't stand still, they again, it's like Flash. They don't really care about the time travel unless it concerns them.
Yes.
So anyway, I guess that was my favorite part, is that I thought in terms of the use of Chekhov's gun, in terms of a selfless act that was actually selfless and wasn't just set up as this convenient. I like how that was done. I mean, it kind of takes away like a huge giant confrontation between them, but it was still a very smart thing to do, and I liked how it was done. And
yes.
You know, it made sense given that, you know, he had the broken watch before and then he had the time loop now. There was a symmetry to it. So, yeah, I liked it. I mean, think about it. Broken time was he had that broken watch, and so broken time becomes a theme, and I liked it. It was very well done. So I guess that was my favorite part, as I just realized now as I talked it out with you.
Yeah, that can happen. That can happen sometimes.
All right. So I guess now we have to give this movie a score.
Yep.
And before we get there, I just want to take a chance to remind our listeners that review scores are dumb and they don't matter. And you've probably already seen Doctor Strange if you've listened to this point in the podcast anyway. So you know if you like it or not, but we're going to give it a score. Again, scores are highly objective and they don't mean anything, and people put way too much stock in them. So as is such, Nick, what would you score Doctor Strange?
I would give it 3 collar turn-ups out of 5.
Oh, the collar turn-up.
Yeah.
The thing kept wiping his tears, and he's like, stop. I just thought, like, way to ruin a great moment, you know, with a little joke.
Yeah. And some people have kind of gone, is that a bit of a Sherlock nod as well? Possibly?
Is it?
Well, yeah, because in Sherlock he very often turns the collar up on his long coat. Huh. So yeah, a few people have kind of gone.
Doctor Strange does have a very severe collar, so I mean it's Anyway, so time for my score, and mine's also cloak related, as I will simply give Doctor Strange the Cloak of Levitation.
Okay.
You know, it does what it needs to do when it has to do it, and it was. Yeah, it was a very functional movie that did what it needed to do when it was called upon, although it could be very fickle, as is the Cloak of Levitation.
That's fair. And occasionally has some funny moments.
Exactly right.
Sorry to jump back a bit, but the bit where like he's trying to reach for the axe, And the cloak is like, no, go over there!
Yeah, the cloak's like, that's not the right tool for the job. Again,
Yeah.
the cloak, probably flying solo, could have done a better job of fighting off Mads Mikkelsen than...
Yeah. I'd love if they went back to doing like one of those Marvel one-shots and it was like a day in the life of the Cloak of Levitation.
Oh, that would be great!
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'd love to see that. Oh, I hope they do that. All right.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right, so now it's time for final thoughts. This is a soapbox where we can talk about whatever we want. And Nick, you might have some stuff you want to plug. I don't know.
Yeah. No. Well, I'll before I go into horrible pluggy corporate mode, if you're giving me a soapbox, I want to fly the flag because this is Marvel related. Go watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., people, okay? I admit, first half season 1, kind of bad, a lot of just Monster of the Week stuff. But with 4 seasons in, it's just got renewed for a full 5th season, and there was a bit of a question mark over that. It's got really, really, really good. Genuinely, I recommend it. Because a lot of people have kind of gone, oh, it was kind of not good.
Yeah, I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
I saw the first half of season 1, and I say like, I'm just not getting this.
At the very least, watch the rest of season 1 because you get a lot of Bill Paxton.
Oh, Bill Paxton?
Yep,
Oh.
He's the major villain in like the second half of season 1.
Maybe I didn't watch. I mean, it was so hard to watch, to be honest.
Even I will consider, like, if I went back and watched the first half of season 1, anything pre-Winter Soldier, I think even I would go, nah. But
Yeah.
I enjoy the characters that they've made so much, and I think there's so much depth to them. Like, a lot of people have said, like Daredevil is such a deeply made character, he could easily slot into the movie universe, ignoring the kind of difficulties with that. I think that's the same with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. characters. Like, to this day, it really pisses me off that in Age of Ultron, the scene where the helicarrier comes up, I was so hoping that was going to be staffed by, if not Coulson himself, Coulson's team, which would make a lot of sense, because they go on to explain in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that Coulson is the one that gets that helicarrier there. But I was kind of like, it was the perfect opportunity. But no, so that is my thing. And okay. I'm gonna be horrible and corporate now. Yes, as Greg said at the beginning, I do a podcast called Gamers Without Borders. I kind of do it as and when at the moment because I'm very busy. But as Greg mentioned, the last few episodes have been me and him chatting about games, about films, kind of a lot like this podcast in a way. But yes, that's always good fun. You can find us there. If you want to listen to just one episode, I would recommend listening to episode 24, because the thing I basically do the equivalent of the Greg and Rachel McAdams thing with my guest, where I just lose any sense of professionalism whatsoever. So thoroughly recommend that.
You definitely fanboyed a lot in that episode.
Oh, I can't go back and listen to it now. Just no.
It was funny to listen to because I know you, and so because if you didn't know you wouldn't really be able to recognize it as much. You just wonder, like, is this guy just a weird interviewer or what's going on? But no, you were just fanboying the entire time.
Exactly. I like to think that in most cases I'm a relatively kind of professional and reserved kind of guy, and so like you say, it's just that was a fun afternoon. I also do some writing about video games and a few other topics. I'm hoping to pick that stuff back up over the summer, so you can find, if you want my games writing, you can find that at nickpjenkins25.wordpress.com. I should say you can follow the podcast on Twitter at GWBpod. You can email us at gwbpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you want any of those details, if you go to Enthusiacs.com and click on the Doctor Strange Hero Talk, I will have all of Nick's information in the show notes for you to follow him.
Okie dokie, thank you very much.
No problem there. All right, so I think that brings us to a close. Nick, thank you very much for coming on Hero Talk.
No, I'm so happy. It's something that's kind of been on the back burner for a while. We're trying to sort it out, and I'm really happy to have made my debut.
Oh, it's great to have you. You are welcome back anytime.
I would definitely love to, and I think it'd be interesting if we can do it to get me involved with some of the other Hero Talk lot.
I think the Enthusiacs at large would love to have more of you on. You integrate perfectly into this format.
Yeah, and even if I had to stay up at like midnight my time, I'd find a way.
We will help find a way, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to sell these early morning recording sessions to the other guys.
Yeah. If you hadn't worked this out, me and Greg are kind of in different places, and it's very early for Greg at the moment.
Yeah. Although it's not super early right now, though.
Yeah,
when we started, it was kind of early. I mean, even then, it was not too terrible. Anyway, so thank you very much for joining us.
That's fine, my pleasure.
All right. So if you want to hear many more Hero Talks or my sister podcast, you can check out Enthusiacs.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube for Enthusiacs. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes. We are on Stitcher. We are on TuneIn. And we are on Google Play. All of those sources to listen to more podcasts. And until next time, this is Judge Greg saying, try me, Beyonce.